The Martian sun bled across the horizon, painting the rocky plains a deep, haunting red. Commander Darius Voss ran, his boots kicking up clouds of rust-colored dust that swirled in the thin air. Inside his helmet, the piercing shriek of emergency sirens from Outpost Helios-9 was a constant, terrifying drumbeat against his ear. Something had breached the southern defense wall. The initial reports were chaotic fast, violent, and utterly alien. Nothing like the desert predators documented in the Martian logs. Helios-9. This is Voss. I'm 800 meters out. Give me a status report, he yelled into his comms, his voice tight as he fought to control his breathing. The only answer was a crackle of static, a hiss of empty space, then a voice, broken and terrified, cut through the noise. Commander, we're under attack. Unknown hostiles. We've lost sections B and C. The transmission dissolved into a gut-wrenching scream, then silence. Darius's heart hammered against his ribs. Helios-9 wasn't just any outpost. It was the linchpin of human survival on Mars, a massive geothermal energy hub that powered nearly half of the planet's fragile, terraforming systems. If Helios-9 fell, the entire network of human settlements would cascade into failure. Humanity's dream of a second home would die right here, in this red dust. He gripped his magnetic rifle, the cold metal a small comfort, and forced his legs to move faster. Cresting the final ridge overlooking the outpost, he froze. The sight below stole the air from his lungs. 6 creatures, tall and slender, with skin like polished chrome, were tearing through the outpost's reinforced steel walls, as if they were paper. Their bodies shimmered, shifting like mercury, their limbs morphing seamlessly from sleek appendages into razor-sharp blades, cruel spears, and glowing plasma cannons. These weren't animals. They weren't machines. They were something else entirely. Something far more advanced and infinitely more dangerous. Darius whispered the words that would change everything. Oh, hell. We are not alone. As if the thought itself had been heard, a metallic spear slammed into the ground just inches from his boot, erupting in a geyser of dust and rock. One of the chrome figures had spotted him. It unfolded 2 long, glowing appendages from its back, and sprinted towards him with a speed that defied physics, faster than anything human could possibly achieve. Darius threw himself into a roll, the ground scraping against his suit. He came up firing, a burst from his magnetic rifle impacting the creature's chest. The rounds sparked harmlessly off its liquid metal armor, leaving nothing more than a faint scratch. The creature lunged, its arm a blur as it morphed into a blade. Darius reacted on pure instinct, grabbing its arm, twisting with all his might, and slamming a high-yield EMP. Charged directly into its torso. The alien convulsed violently, its silver body flickering with arcs of blue lightning. It didn't die, but it faltered, its movements becoming sluggish and uncoordinated. That was the opening he needed. Darius grabbed the alien's blade arm, forcing it aside, and fired point-blank into the exposed joint beneath its shoulder. With a shriek of tearing metal, the creature collapsed, its body pooling like molten silver around its fractured core. 1 down, he muttered, his voice grim. 5 to go. He sprinted into the breach, into the heart of the chaos. The interior of Helios-9 was a slaughterhouse. Bodies of his comrades' engineers, soldiers, brilliant scientists lay, scattered amidst the wreckage. Smoke, thick and acrid, billowed from broken control panels, and live wires sparked erratically from shattered generators. He forced himself to keep moving, to not dwell on the faces of the dead. If anyone was still alive, every single second was precious. Then, a flicker of movement. Lieutenant Aya Jensen crawled out from behind a fallen steel support beam, her hand clamped over a deep, bleeding wound on her shoulder. Her face was pale with shock and pain. "Commander," she gasped. They came from below. They tunneled in. He knelt beside her. "Can you walk?" She gave a weak, determined nod. Just then, a metallic roar echoed from behind them. To more of the aliens, their forms hulking and monstrous, forced their way through the mangled walls. Their arms were already morphing into plasma weapons, glowing with a deadly blue light. Darius pushed Aya behind a collapsed server rack and opened fire, deliberately drawing their attention. The aliens answered with a terrifying barrage of blue plasma bolts. The projectiles screamed down the hallway, melting entire sections of the corridor into slag. Darius dove behind a heavy command console just as the wall behind him vaporized in a flash of intense heat. "We can't fight them." "Hey, Don," Aya shouted over the din. "Their armor's too strong." "We don't have to," Darius yelled back, his mind racing. "We just have to hold them off long enough to overload the Station-S fusion core." Aya's eyes widened in horror. "Sir, that'll vaporize the entire outpost. And the tunnel they crawled out of?" He finished, his voice hard as iron. He loaded his last EMP charge. "Humanity survives. That's the mission, Lieutenant." They moved with desperate speed through the burning, smoke-filled corridors. It was a race against time. Darius planted explosive charges along the primary power conduits, while Aya, her fingers flying across a miraculously intact terminal, rerouted the core's control systems to manual override. But the aliens were relentless. They were fast. As Darius and Aya burst into the core chamber, the ground beneath them trembled violently. Descending from the cavernous ceiling like metallic demons, the final 3 aliens landed with a deafening crash. Their eyes glowed like molten orange, locking onto the 2 humans. Darius shoved Aya towards the main control panel. "Set the overload sequence. Now." "I'll hold them." "Commander, I can't leave you." "That's an order, Lieutenant," he roared. The aliens charged. With a defiant yell, Darius unleashed everything he had. The concussive blast from his rifle sent one alien stumbling back, but another slammed into him with the force of a freight train, throwing him across the room. He hit the far wall hard, an explosion of agony erupting through his ribs. The alien loomed over him, its arm shifting into a half-meter blade, poised to strike. Darius scrambled, his hand finding a length of steel pipe from the wreckage. He blocked the downward strike just in time, sparks flying as metal scraped against metal. With every ounce of his remaining strength, he swung the pipe, smashing it into the alien's face and denting its featureless silver mask. It lashed out again, a sweeping strike that sliced across his suit. Blood misted the air inside his helmet, warm and slick against his cheek. But humans, he thought, were built to fight until the very last breath. He jammed his final EMP charge directly into the alien's throat cavity. It detonated with a muffled thud, and the creature collapsed, its head and torso dissolving into a heap of molten pieces. A plasma bolt seared past him, scorching his armor and sending a fresh wave of pain through his body. Darius stumbled but raised his rifle again, firing until the weapon overheated and died in his hands. The chamber filled with smoke and the smell of ozone. When the air cleared slightly, only one alien remained, the largest of them all. It stepped forward, its metallic skin shifting, hardening into thick armor plates. Tenet spoke its voice, a deep, resonant, and chillingly mechanical tone that vibrated through the deck plates. "Human, surrender." Darius wiped a smear of blood from his mouth with the back of his glove. He managed a grim smile. "We don't do that." The alien lunged. Darius met it head-on, a desperate, final act of defiance. They crashed against the control railing surrounding the core. The alien pinned him, its metal claws tightening around his helmet, crushing it. Black spots danced in his vision. The world began to fade. Then a massive, blinding explosion of pure white light erupted from behind him. Aya. She had done it. She had activated the overload. "Time to go," she screamed. Using the last of his strength, Darius jammed his boot into the alien's abdomen, kicking it backward with all his force. The alien stumbled, losing its balance, and fell into the glowing, gravitational field of the exposed fusion core. The powerful forces pulled the creature apart, shredding its liquid metal body into a shower of incandescent sparks. A calm, automated voice echoed through the chamber. "Core overload in 20 seconds. Darius slung Aya's arm over his shoulder, and together they ran. The station was tearing itself apart around them. Walls shook, ceilings collapsed, and fire erupted from every direction. They dove out of the southern exit, tumbling across the red sand just as a blinding, silent explosion consumed Helios-9. The blast wave washed over them, hot and powerful, as the entire outpost and the tunnels beneath it were vaporized into nothingness. Silence returned to Mars. Aya coughed, the sound raw in the sudden quiet. "Commander," we survived. Darius pushed himself to his knees, staring at the glowing, superheated crater where Helios-9 once stood. The monument to humanity's greatest achievement was gone. "No, Lieutenant," he said, his voice low and heavy. "Humanity survived, and now we know what's down there." He tightened the straps on his gloves, his eyes hardening into chips of flint as he stared out at the vast, empty desert. "This war has officially begun."